the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I'm your host, Chance Pitts, and I would like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys, first and foremost, if you receive value from this episode or any other episode we have put out on the podcast, please make sure you are sharing the show with like-minded individuals who would receive the same kind of benefit that you have. That's the number one way for us to grow and move in a positive direction with the show, to reach the most people and have the most positive impact overall. Additionally, you can help us out with that process by subscribing on whatever platform you listen in on, or leaving us a rating or review on that same platform. Then guys, be sure to check us out on social media at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can keep up with our daily content that we try to put out there on those as well. Guys, next I would like to say happy belated Easter as well. I hope y'all had as good of an Easter weekend as I did. We got to do some traveling, went up to Central Texas, saw some friends and family we hadn't seen in a long time. It was really nice to get up there and be a part of some of the celebration up there. So it was really enjoyable and relaxing, and I hope y'all had the same kind of experience as well. And as we sit down to record, it's really hard to believe that we are 34 episodes into this podcast, guys. It's very exciting to be sharing the information that we are with y'all, passing some things along, and hopefully helping to move y'all in a positive direction. So guys, one thing I wanted to talk to y'all about today is something that I am actually struggling with tonight. And that is my biggest weaknesses and how I overcome them. I will show you why I am struggling with this tonight as we get a little bit deeper into the show. So guys, oftentimes we talk about the strengths that we are looking to build in our lives, and we focus on the things that we are good at. We focus on the different things that are attached to problems in the form of a strength that we use to overcome said problem. And you know, that's a good strategy, to focus on the positive, to focus on the strength, to focus on the things that we are easily able to control in those situations. But I do think there comes a time when we don't focus on our weaknesses quite enough. We don't put the attentions on the area of development that we could have in our lives. And usually it's not intentional. Usually we focus, like I said, on the areas we can control and on the things that we have within our wheelhouse, and we try to be the most effective with our time. And that's understandable, but the truth is we will always be fighting against those weaknesses if we don't actively work to make them strengths as well. And when I say weaknesses, these are often called a couple of different names. You know, we talk about areas of improvement within our lives. We talk about obstacles that we face. Now, typically, both of those two things that I just listed are truly weaknesses. No matter what we call them, no matter how much we beat around the bush, they are, in fact, weaknesses that we have to face within our lives. And they come from within in a lot of ways. We set up those areas of improvement for ourselves. We set up the obstacles in front of us for ourselves because we don't attack the weaknesses that we have in our lives. And the truth is that those weaknesses are very real. I know I have plenty of them within my own life, and if you're honest with yourself as well, I know you'll have plenty in yours too. And we really need to stop and think about what these things are. We need to know them better than our strengths at times so that we know how to defeat them. And guys, I wanted to start by listing out my top 4 weaknesses. Guys, these are things I am very familiar with within myself. Number 1 being that I am a perfectionist, guys. And that is the main reason I alluded to earlier that I was battling one of these weaknesses within my time tonight trying to record this episode. I am a perfectionist. I have stopped and tried to record this thing probably about 20 times. I've spent 2 hours sitting over here messing around with this recording, which is a ridiculous amount of time for the episode that we're probably going to put out tonight. But also, it's just who I am. I try to get things perfect. I try to put out the perfect product. If y'all are going to sit here and put in your hard-earned time, knowing that time is an expensive commodity, your hard-earned time into listening to this show. Number 2 on my weakness list, guys, is that I am a control freak. I always end up on project teams and I always end up working on special things with peer groups, people of the same level as I am. And I find myself diving into a leadership role very quickly, and I start attacking problems systematically and planning before anyone else gets an opportunity to do so. So I usually end up in control of the situations, and I like it that way because I can control how efficient we are and what we focus our attention on as a group. Number 3 on my weakness list, guys, I always choose to shoulder the load no matter what. This is with work, this is with my personal life, and an example of that in work right now is we have a lot of changes going on. We have a lot of systems that we're trying to put in place. We've got a lot of problems that truly need to be addressed within our workplace. And most of those tasks and the to-do list from that task list and those different processes we're trying to implement are with my name next to them. I am in charge of them. I have taken ownership of them because I try to shoulder the load, because I understand burnout. I understand people being stressed, and I know that I can typically carry a little bit more weight in that sense than some people. So I always load myself up probably a little too much. Guys, the last example of a weakness for myself, number 4, is going to be that I am an extremely, and I mean extremely, impatient person. My wife listens to the show and she's probably shaking her head as she hears this and agreeing. Guys, I set these goals for myself. I invest, and I often put myself in a weird situation or in a bind, or I make a detrimental decision because I am impatient with my time. I do not want to wait for the things to come to me. I am a very go-getter kind of person, and guys, it really bites me in the ass every once in a while. And these are all things, like I said, that I actively struggle with. And you might say that some of these things aren't necessarily weaknesses, but I would argue that at any point you find yourself with a detrimental thing in front of you, something that is having a negative draw on your life, that is something that is considered a weakness. But guys, the great news about these weaknesses is that just like every other problem in life, the first and arguably most important step in solving the problem is admitting or recognizing that you do have a problem, or in this case, that there is a weakness present. And guys, within that, my admittance to that is that, yes, I am absolutely a perfectionist. Like I said, guys, I genuinely want y'all to have the absolute best product out there. I want y'all to receive value every single time y'all listen to the show. And to do that, I feel like I have to be a perfectionist, and that's why that is a weakness. And number 2, guys, I am a control freak, and I know that I like to lead because I absolutely hate indecisiveness. I hate inefficiencies. And my leading is an efficient way that I can make sure that everyone else's time is utilized for their full potential. So we can end up doing things that we enjoy more often because we're wasting less time on the things that don't truly matter. And then guys, on shouldering the load for everyone else, this is because I try to help way too many people with way too many things. This gives others the much needed break that they need. It often lets them avoid some kind of burnout and helps them to understand that, we're in this together. I've got your back. But in some ways, it draws on me even more because I don't get that break as well. And then guys, the admittance of weakness for the extremely impatient side of me is because I want things that symbolize success and that prove my value to be in my possession right now. And guys, it's a form of self-validation in a lot of ways. It truly is. But it's very important that I take the time to recognize these things, that I take the time to actually put them out and talk about them in the open and admit that they're weaknesses and the reason I allow those weaknesses to be a part of my life. And that's the best way that I can help myself combat these things. And guys, the way that I combat them is very important within themselves. And I wanted to take the time to explain how I fight through each one of those things with you today. And guys, how I fight through being a perfectionist is that I spend less time on the things that don't matter as much. If the details aren't as important to a project and the things don't have to be done to an absolute perfect T like I'm going to try to make myself do every single time. I force myself to take the efficient route and to spend time in other areas where I can be more productive. And that's something, like I said, I struggled with tonight on this. I had to stop. I had to go into a planning phase rather than trying to rattle something off the top of my head. I had to take the time to put in the work early to make sure I had something fledged out, and then I had to lower my expectations upon myself in order to get a better product. I was overthinking everything. I was trying to force something to be really solid and really good tonight, and sometimes you just don't have that kind of ability to pull that straight out of your hat. And guys, I hope this ends up being a very good podcast for y'all, but it's something I had to slow down and make sure that I wasn't trying to over perfect. And then in the sense of being a control freak, the way that I combat being a control freak is that I actively practice letting others take control of situation. I also actively practice trying to be a better follower. I try to be the kind of follower that I would want to lead. I listen. I'm careful with my attention to detail. I focus on the little things. I follow orders, and there's accountability with myself. I make sure that I do the things I say I am going to do. And that's the best way I've learned to fight that control freak factor and the control freak weakness, I guess. Guys, next, that choosing to shoulder the load the way I do. I try to keep from volunteering as much for these different things that come into my life. I try to make sure that other people come and ask me for help before I just dive into action and try to help them however I can. That's a very important thing to realize, that sometimes I am actually putting the load on myself. Sometimes there was absolutely no need and there was no request for assistance with the things that I am putting myself into and the situations I find myself in. Guys, that's very important to make sure that we're not the person getting in our own way with our weaknesses. And then guys, the way that I combat being extremely impatient is that I force myself to slow down and do things that require patience. The number one thing that I've done that has helped me build patience is, oddly enough, ultra running. Because whenever you decide to run 60 miles or you decide to run 100 miles or even 33, you've got to realize at some point that no matter how hard you try to run, how much you try to force a situation, it's just going to make it worse. It's going to be detrimental to your overall success within the course. So what you have to do is you have to stick to the strategy. You have to stick to the plan. You have to make yourself stay intentional for the full course of time. And if in any case you find yourself running an ultramarathon, that's like 11 hours straight of just thinking, wanting it to be over, wanting to find a way to expedite the process, and there truly being no other way of doing it besides putting in the time early and training and making sure that you can reach your full potential whenever that day comes around. And then guys, the last aspect of looking at your weaknesses is realizing that somewhere within those weaknesses, there is truly a strength that can be discovered. And what you have to do to find that strength is to focus on the positive side of your weaknesses. And I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, so let me show you exactly what I'm talking about whenever I say that. Guys, I realize that within my first weakness, I am a perfectionist because I genuinely care about the work that I do every single day. And if I give something a small piece of me, if I start something, I take the time to invest into a project, I want it to be representational of the person that I am and the person that I am trying to be. Within that same finding the positivity and strength, number 2, the control freak side of me, I believe that finding the most profitable and the most beneficial thing to everyone involved in a situation is genuinely the most efficient thing we can do. It's the most efficient money-wise and more importantly time-wise, because like we've said several times during the show, time is the most valuable and most important commodity that we have, and there is absolutely no point to sit around and waste it. Guys, number 3 in finding the strength and positivity of my weaknesses is whenever I choose to shoulder the load for everyone else. Shouldering the load has caused me to become much more versatile in my multitasking and problem-solving skills. It's also helped me to build great relationships with people by helping them in their time of need and taking some of those things off of their back, even though placing them on mine might have put me under a strain. There's still a lot of positivity to come out of those situations for that reason. And number 4 in the strength side of weakness, guys, being extremely impatient is kind of a good sign as well, because being impatient goes along with the previously stated hatred of wasted time. And it also ties directly into the other side of positive efficiency and making sure we are working in the right direction for the right reasons. But it also is important to realize that if you're impatient and you're really wanting something to happen quickly, it's usually because you have ambition and you're ready to move on to the next thing after that. And while that is a good thing, you have to remind yourself that there is a time within this process to where you have to move along that timeline. You cannot force things to move faster than they're supposed to. So guys, my point with the statements above is that, like I said, when we consider these weaknesses and we really start to weigh them out, there is truly some good within every single one of them. And sure, there's areas that we need to work on, but there's also an important side to see with this, guys. All of these areas are weaknesses for us for a reason. We need to understand that they show a deeper desire from within on many of us. They point out the things that are important to us, and they show us the things that we truly value within our lives. For instance, guys, if you find yourself being of a weakness that is a tendency to be lazy, know that there's a time to lounge around and enjoy life and to be lazy. It comes when you've worked hard and when you've gotten to a point to where you can afford to do so. You've got all of your ducks in a row and you've taken care of business and you've gotten to a point to where you can continue to take care of your family with the path that you've built for yourself, with the foundation that you've built for yourself. And now you can afford to take that time off and be lazy. And know that the laziness is honestly just you wanting to relax and live an enjoyable life. And that's okay to want that. You just have to make sure you take the appropriate action to be able to have that time to be lazy. And the same thing, like I said, comes with being impatient. If you're anything like me and you are impatient, guys, it's okay, because this shows that you've got a drive to go get the things that you want. You might want them to be in your hand a little quicker than you should, but remember that you have to get there in due time, guys. It's going to take time to reach those points of success. Like I said, you can't force things to happen any faster than they're meant to happen for yourself. But having that longing to get things that are better in your life and to reach new heights and to reach your goals is a very important part of ever truly striving to reach those goals. And guys, what I want y'all to do from this is I challenge y'all to take hold of your weaknesses. Sit down and make a list of those things in your life that you would consider weaknesses. Take time away from the strengths to focus on these things. Audit those weaknesses, guys. Think about them on a deeper level, just like we did today. Why do you let that weakness impact your life? What power does it have over you? What desire is it truly alluding to underneath the whole process? Guys, also consider, how do you fight that weakness? What do you do to combat it whenever it comes your way? What are some steps that you have to take to ensure that you don't succumb to that weakness and honestly have it take over your development process and derail it in a very negative way? Then guys, also, you have to stop and you have to think. Once you understand that weakness, you have to look and see how you can make that said weakness serve you in a positive way. And if you can do this, you'll truly be amazed at how much your weaknesses can be turned into your greatest strengths. All it takes is taking the time to stop, to understand them, and to learn how to wield them in the battle of life. Guys, thanks for tuning into another episode of the Next in Line podcast. Remember, if you receive value from this show, make sure you're sharing it with like-minded people. Be sure to check us out on social media. That's at Next in Line Development to see what we have going on next with the movement. And then, guys, always be prepared for whatever is next in line.